Something's fishy.
Hey guys, I'm Shark Zone, and in today's video, I'll be explaining how to escape and climb out of Silver in Season 10. I made a video 5 days ago where I explained how to climb out of all ranks, but today I've decided to talk about Silver because this is where most people are stuck in the League of Legends community. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button because it would really help me out a lot, and feel free to follow me on twitch.tv where you can watch me play this game live. So just a little background, I made a Smurf account around 2 weeks ago where I started off in low bronze MMR, and I was able to escape Silver with over an 80% win rate. There were so many mistakes made that the actual player couldn't identify, and they just brushed it off as not that big of a deal when they were game changing. Let's start this video off talking about the laning phase because that seems to be the most important in many Silver players' eyes. The two ways players would play the lane was either way too aggressive or way too passive. There's no middle ground. By passive, I mean they went lane dominant champions like LeBlanc or Zed, not pressuring me taking every CS or denying me any XP early game. They may throw a poke ability every once in a while, but it's not as aggressive as you would see a platinum player execute it. There just overall wasn't much risk going for minions really far up in the wave, even playing a melee champion like Fizz early game, and it's really easy to farm up even into counterpick lanes. Now the way too aggressive players on the other hand are sure aggressive, but it's not the most practical way of being aggressive. This typically happens to me versus melee assassins like Talon, Diana, or Kiana, where they would consistently shove in waves without wards early game and get ganked. After they die to the gank, they instantly blame their team, and many of the times the argument isn't valid. Whether it's that their jungler didn't counter gank or for some reason not related to their lane, like flaming their bot lane for still losing. The proper way to play aggressive on early focused champions is to freeze the wave near your tower, then zone the enemy from golden XP. Understanding when a freeze and shove is a key fundamental of playing any lane, and the basic rule of thumb since we're focusing on escaping Silver is to freeze the wave when you're trying to zone the enemy from minions, and shove the wave in when you're looking to ward, recall, or roam. Try to back on a cannon wave since the tower will focus it instead of the little ones, giving you more golden XP when you come back. Very common on assassins, again because they're the most picked champs in Silver, is to roam while there's still a wave mid. Whether you succeed at that roam getting a kill, it won't equal the amount of minions you lost under tower in value. If you randomly leave mid, it's extremely risky because when you do come back after a failed roam, you've possibly lost 2 waves of minions, 2 tower platings, which equals roughly 500 gold. That will also put you behind in levels, which means that one play you thought wasn't a big deal could turn out to be losing you the early game. Roaming is very rewarding, and the way to make a successful roam where you lose nothing in the process is to slow push 2 waves until it crashes under their tower. After that will roughly give you 45 seconds where you can do whatever you want on the map without fear of losing anything. Now let's talk about objective control and map awareness. Map awareness in particular is what needs serious improvements because looking back at my replays, there were moments where I was spotted on a ward during a roam and the bot lane didn't react to it. Pings need to happen more often in general to tell your team exactly what you're thinking about. Don't just randomly go into someone's lane to gank, instead ping you're on your way 10 seconds before you come in so that way they can set it up. Using it to let your team know there's an objective spawning in 30 seconds or that you're actually about to take it. Just using your map is way more useful than you think, and if you evaluate it properly, that puts you at a high gold level. By evaluate, I don't just mean looking at your map to see if the jungler was spotted on a ward, but to predict his pathing based off of where your jungler is on the map and knowing that 2 lanes are actively fighting to set something up. Objectives are actually never thought about early game, which is why games tend to drag out to the 30 to 40 minute mark. If drag is heavily prioritized from the time it spawns, then Dragon Soul will usually be taken around the 23 minute mark, but in Silver, it's usually around the 40 minute mark. They never are thought about enough, which means that there are barely any wards on it, so if you're playing a heavy clear jungler, you might be able to solo it at level 5. Just make sure to bring a sweeper or control ward, but this is a cheesy tactic that will work 8 out of 10 times. Dragon is prioritized over Rift Herald early game, and Elder is more important than Baron late game. I've noticed it takes an average of 10 seconds for people to react to their laner who has disappeared from lane, which means if you can get your bot lane to shove in 1 wave under tower, that gives enough time to quickly rush drag as long as there's no wards. Now let's talk about mid-game farming and team fighting. Mid-game is a sloppy ARAM mid where trying to go for a pick is the objective. Literally every Silver game you could come back because of this reason, when all you have to do is have your team stay under tower while you collect side waves. People struggle so much when it comes to sieging, and side laning doesn't happen often. That's also why if you could play a killer split pusher, then you could carry every single one of your games because them not knowing how to play against you. Top lane can have the most impact in this rating because you're drawing so much attention away from mid, and that gives your team so many win-win options if you're ahead. CS counts in higher silver will be pretty solid for the first 10 minutes, but after that, it goes downhill from there. Averaging 8 to 9 CS per minute needs to happen if you want to be playing in high elo, which means if there's no objectives up, then your jungler should be farming camps, the top laner should be split pushing top preferably with TP, the bot lane should be collecting mid waves with their long range, and the mid laner should be clearing whichever hasn't been cleared. If you can average 8 to 9 CS mid game, then you'll literally be up 50 to 80 minions, which equals more than 3 kills worth of gold. Teamfighting is mainly what will win or lose you games if you play them correctly. Positioning errors from all squishies happen every game, which means if you're playing a burst mage or assassin, that's an easy cleanup. The most common mistake I saw was people focusing the tank or whoever's closest to them. Doing that wastes all of your sources of damage, and if you do this, then that might be the key reason why your heart's stuck. It's the simplest fix, and if you're playing a damage focused assassin, try your best to flank at the side of the fight and avoiding tanks. If you delete the enemy squishy, then they'll be missing out on the majority of their damage, which raises your chances of winning by a lot. Use the lack of map awareness to your advantage because you could just be cruising through the jungle or side lanes getting picks. That's one of the key reasons why I was able to average such a high win rate in silver. Play an assassin, then get one pick mid game, which equals an easy objective. Now, playing assassins may be tricky, and I highly recommend learning the fundamentals of mages because they teach you more about the game. They are also more consistent because even in high elo, you could always farm up, then provide your team nice wave clear and poke mid game no matter what. Getting caught could also be the key reason why your heart's stuck when the average death rates for all champions in silver are way higher. If you got yourself a lead, throw it by getting caught mid game, and that's lost potential. Build paths on 50% of players are also wrong, so just copy paste the recommended build from people in higher ranks. It could be the big things like the items you rush first, or the small things like never getting boots. I've seen them all, and it's best not to be creative, instead copy paste the build. Once you reach gold, then you could start worrying about itemization for every specific lane. Make sure you're also playing enough games of rank before you start evaluating which rank you belong in, because it roughly takes 100 games to be placed in the correct rank. There are 2 types of players in this rank, which is the first one who has over 900 games this season with a 50% win rate, or the one with only 47 games. The player with many games is taking a step in the right direction, but needs to evaluate what he's doing wrong, and as for the player with 47 games, you just need to play more games. I know ranked anxiety might affect you, but when you play enough games, it won't be that big of a deal. The difference between low silver and high silver are mechanics alone, but it's not the same between high silver and high gold. Champion pools are almost always too big, with them consisting of over 7 champions in 3 different roles. What usually ends up happening is after a player loses 4 games on their main champ, then they start playing whatever they want. If you do that too often, then you'll never be able to learn your main champ to the core, which results in you gaining some sweet LP. Limit your champion pool to 2 champions in 2 roles, and that goes for anyone under high diamond. It makes your consistency more apparent and knowing your power spikes. Typically, when it comes to the laning phase, the main difference between high silver players and platinum ones is consistency. I know you remember the one game you popped off controlling everything on the map, rotating that lead into another lane, taking objectives, then winning team fights. Now, how often does that happen, I may ask? Once every 7 games? Once every 10 games? Well, if you did that every game, wouldn't you climb? Consistency is key when it comes to ranking up, and what mainly factors that is tilt. If you tilt after losing 2 games in a row, that sets up for streaks of games where you win and lose. Ego plays a huge part in silver, where people think they're the best player in the world, and what's holding them back is their teammates. Now, there are players like that in all ranks, but in silver, that's where you will find the most toxic of them. Nobody can change your mindset but yourself, so if you have one, it will stop you from looking at your mistakes, and if you don't, great, keep improving. What happens most games is you win lane by a tiny bit and never translate that lead into anything, and your team loses. This game isn't a team deathmatch, nor is it a solo fighter. It's a team game, and you're gonna have to be the one to carry. The official 80-20 principle is pretty accurate, and it states that 10% of your games will be super easy to win, 10% of your games will be impossible to win, and 80% of the games you can impact. That's true for all ranks up until master tier, and it's all up to you to impact that 80% of your games. If you play enough games, it equals out to where if you get an AFK player 1 out of every 10 games, then on the enemy team, they will get an AFK player 1 out of every 10 games. It equals out to an even 50-50%, so there's no excuse for your teammates or unfortunate situations you face because it happens to the other team too. If you comment saying it's impossible to climb without a duo, duo, you're delusional because Smurfs prove it can be done again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Anyways guys, I really hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please smash that like button. Feel free to comment anything you want to see next, and subscribe to see more like this in the future. If you haven't, feel free to follow me on twitch.tv where you can watch me play this game live. I'm Shark Zone here with another video, and I'm out. Peace.